In this podcast, the host introduces Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as a candidate from one of America's most iconic political dynasties. Kennedy is known for his commitment to justice and government transparency, and he has ignited the spirit of positive change in millions of voters. The conversation begins with a discussion about the recent GOP debate between Governor DeSantis of Florida and Governor Newsom of California. Kennedy commends DeSantis for his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly for bringing in top epidemiologists and medical researchers to advise on the best course of action. However, he criticizes Newsom's management of the pandemic in California, citing extended lockdowns and negative impacts on children's education and development. Kennedy expresses his concerns about the current political climate and the potential for President Biden to step down, leading to speculation about the future of the Democratic Party. He emphasizes the need for strong leadership and a vision for the country, rather than relying on fear-based tactics to sway voters. The conversation then shifts to Kennedy's candidacy as an independent. Bet David raises the issue of third-party candidates potentially influencing the outcome of the election, as seen in past cases with Ross Perot and Teddy Roosevelt. Kennedy acknowledges the challenge, but highlights his strong performance in polls, particularly among younger voters and independents. He emphasizes the importance of offering a viable alternative to the two major parties and restoring hope for the future of the country. The topic of campaign funding is addressed, with Kennedy explaining that his campaign has raised over $8 million, outperforming both President Trump and President Biden in the last quarter. He also mentions the support from super PACs and the need to build a larger donor base to compete with the major parties. The conversation then delves into Kennedy's stance on Big Pharma and their influence on advertising. Bet David raises the issue of Big Pharma's significant financial contributions to cable TV and questions the ethics of allowing pharmaceutical companies to advertise directly to consumers. Kennedy agrees with the idea of banning pharmaceutical advertising on cable TV, citing historical precedents with tobacco and liquor ads being removed from television. Kennedy then shares a personal anecdote about his friendship with Roger Ailes, the founder of Fox News, and how Ailes admitted to prioritizing pharmaceutical advertising revenue over the content of the news. He highlights the significant influence of pharmaceutical companies on news hosts and the content they are allowed to air. The conversation then shifts to the impact of man-made chemicals on the environment and children. Kennedy discusses a study in which exposure to atrazine, a common herbicide, caused male frogs to exhibit female characteristics and lay fertile eggs. He also raises concerns about the increasing prevalence of sexual dimorphism and chronic diseases in children, attributing it to the widespread presence of endocrine-disrupting chemicals in the environment. Kennedy emphasizes the need for further research to understand the effects of these chemicals on human health and calls for action to address the rising rates of chronic diseases in children. Kennedy also addresses the issue of children undergoing gender transition procedures without parental consent. While he expresses concern about the potential risks and safety of such procedures, he acknowledges the need for further research and data before making a definitive decision on the matter. He emphasizes the importance of protecting children and ensuring that decisions about their health and well-being are made with careful consideration. The conversation then delves into Kennedy's decision to leave the Democratic Party. He explains that his family has a long history of involvement in the Democratic Party, but he felt compelled to leave due to the party's resistance to his presidential candidacy. Kennedy describes the challenges he faced within the party and the pressure to conform to certain rules and regulations that hindered his ability to run a successful campaign. Despite his family's deep ties to the Democratic Party, Kennedy ultimately chose to become an independent candidate in pursuit of addressing the corrupt merger of state and corporate power. In response to a question about the recent conflict between Israel and Palestine, Kennedy expresses skepticism about the intentions and actions of both parties. He references reports of advanced knowledge of terrorist attacks and suspicious market activity, drawing parallels to previous instances where similar patterns were observed before major events such as the 9/11 attacks. Kennedy does not outright accuse any party of ill intentions, but raises questions about the evidence presented and the trustworthiness of government and media sources. Kennedy then shifts the conversation to the topic of independent media and the importance of freedom of speech. He expresses his commitment to empowering and protecting independent media sources, stating that he would issue an executive order to federal employees to prevent collaboration with media to censor political speech. Kennedy emphasizes the significance of transparency and freedom of expression in a democracy, citing historical warnings about the dangers of censoring speech. The conversation then turns to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy and the assassination of his father, Robert F. Kennedy. He shares his belief that Sirhan, who was convicted of assassinating his father, was not the actual killer. Kennedy provides a detailed account of the events surrounding his father's assassination, including the actions of security guard Eugene Scissor, who Kennedy believes may have been involved in the shooting. He also discusses the trauma and impact of these events on his family, acknowledging the reluctance of some family members to revisit the painful memories. He expresses a deep commitment to uncovering the truth about his uncle's assassination and restoring the original idealism and moral authority of the United States.